Hey everyone, this is Matt from EndSickness.org. Today I'm going to talk about how mold remediation is rarely successful, and I'll tell you why. I've had these experiences myself. I've had clients have these experiences. I want to share them with you on this video. First, let me say I'm not a medical doctor. It's not medical advice. This is based on my personal experiences. This is for informational and educational purposes only. So let me get back to it. Okay, so mold remediation, the concept is that you kill all these spores in the house with whatever you're going to use to kill the spores, and that is going to go ahead and fix everything, because the problem is the mold. The problem is the mold. You're sick because of the mold, right? Well, the reality is it's not the mold, it's the mycotoxins, okay? The mycotoxins. And what happens when you go through remediation is these things, these molds, when you try to kill them, they produce more mycotoxins in an attempt to defend their environment. And you actually end up with more mycotoxins that are released temporarily into the air, in that these mycotoxins, the problem is, they don't get killed by these remediation chemicals. They actually saturate your porous material, your wood, your drywall, your couch, all these things get saturated with the mycotoxins, and you could end up with higher levels of mycotoxins in the end from after remediation. The other thing I want to go ahead and say that's most important is that if you have antibodies to these mycotoxins, okay, then it doesn't matter most of the time about the remediation. Yeah, can it reduce the severity of these symptoms? Yeah, it has worked. I'm not going to say remediation is a complete failure all the time, but I'd say it's 10%, 20% if that. And if you got 60 grand to put on it and roll the dice, then go for it. You know what I mean? But the reality is mycotoxin sensitivity is far more complex than that. You have to be able to realize that these people who have these mold illnesses, they have mycotoxin antibodies to the mycotoxins themselves. So even if there's small amounts of them, if they're ultra reactive to these, they could still remain sick from it. You can say, I don't know, I went back, we tested the house, the spore count was low, there's no issue here, can't be the mold anymore. It must be because of asthma, or it must be because of whatever condition, quote unquote. I love when people blame the conditions, right? And must be because of this, right? The reality is there's more still mycotoxins present. You could do tests for mycotoxins, like the EMMA test from real-time labs. It'll test mycotoxin levels in the house. But still, the reality is, if you have a mold problem, if someone's having an issue in that house and they have a severe chronic illness, they're very sick, or they have severe symptoms, there is very low likelihood that by remediating that house that you will just suddenly have these symptoms disappear. There's a higher likelihood that by getting into the right environment that is free of mycotoxins, or small, lower amounts of mycotoxins, that you could see a lot of progress within 30 to 60 days, and over the course of 6 months be at a full recovery with some of these conditions, or leaps and bounds where you were, beyond where you were before. I've seen people who were sick for 2.5 years I worked with. We got them in the right environment. They made more progress within 30, 40 days than they did in 2.5 years, right? And this is 100% something you cannot forget about. So long story short, mold remediation is really not worth the money, okay? It's just not. And I hate to say it, but if you have a home and people are sick in the home, and lots of people are sick, and you have this chronic illness, then you don't want to drop 30, 40 grand on the mold remediation. You want to get the MyMycoLab test. You want to see how bad the antibodies levels are to these molds, and you want to just go from there and just say, hey, how bad is this? Is this above moderate range or higher with some of these antibody levels? If so, then you really got to start considering looking for another place, selling the house. Don't do the mold tests and mold remediation stuff. You're gonna have to show that anyways when you sell the house. It's not worth it. Just do the antibody test, see if you're actually having reactions to what's in the house, accept the reality, and move on and focus on your health as your #1 priority. So thanks for watching, everybody.